I talk with Matt from Auto HDR today on episode 18 of Real Estate Photography Unlocked.
I'm just trying to get mine, but these agents got me losing my mind. Whatever happened to the good times? Man, forget about it. It's showtime. Let me show you how to get some rest, how to make millions, how to be your best. This is shout out to the REPs, to the shooters, producers, and the newbies. Welcome to our podcast. I'm your rep MC. We're here every week talking real estate photography.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 18 of Real Estate Photography Unlocked. It's vacant, go whenever. Today, I will be interviewing the founder and creator of Auto HDR, a brand new AI software. You guys may have seen a review I did of it, unsponsored. This is also completely unsponsored, but Matt has agreed to come on the podcast because he doesn't mind talking about the software. So welcome, Matt. Thank you for coming on. I know that a lot of people that I've reached out to people before and invited them on the podcast, and they have usually just ghosted me. So you reached out to me and said, hey, let's get on the podcast together and talk about this.
Yeah.
So what I would like to do is just introduce you for people who don't know who you are. And how do you pronounce your last name, just to make sure?
It's Matt Gia.
Okay, Gia.
Yeah, I can introduce myself. So I actually started out as a real estate photographer when I was 17. I'm 22 now, so I've been doing that about 5 years. And I was just also studying machine learning and AI and programming. So kind of at this weird intersection of the two niches. So my business is Luxury Vision, still going in Nantucket, Massachusetts. And yeah, we have a few photographers, nothing crazy, not crazy scale, but absolutely love that business and kind of had the idea to try and make AI photo editing happen around a year ago, and basically hired someone to run that business so I could go all in on this. And here we are today with Auto HDR. Yeah.
Okay, cool. I love it, truthfully, when, and people, if you guys saw the reviews, I probably was pretty harsh on some of the pricing and the editing. We're going to get to that. But I also want to make sure that, I complimented, first of all, your simplicity. Since then, I have been looking at other AI possibilities like Imagine and AutoEnhance.ai. And one of the things you guys get that I appreciate, and it's something I do in my own software, is try to make it as easy to use as possible. So when I was signing up for these other ones, it was like 20 to 30 screens before I even got to the possibility of testing it out. With you, literally, it's drag and drop, and that's fantastic. So good job there. Yeah. But I would love to learn more about you as a photographer. I think anybody in the real estate photography space who is a photographer just does a better job of relating to us and understanding everything from the inside out. So let's talk a little bit more about your career as a photographer. Do you do photo, video, and all of that as well? How successful were you? Obviously, you had to do a pretty good job to branch out and fund this.
Yeah. So started out, I think like a lot of people, just me, I was working like an hourly job, wanted to try and make more money doing something I liked. So I was shooting videos. I love shooting video. And actually how I got into real estate was by doing videos on Nantucket. Like no one else was doing it because it's this little island. So like these media agencies you see in like Texas, Florida, for them, it doesn't make sense to go to this little island. We get like 300 listings every year. So it doesn't make sense to like go set up shop there. But I was already there. And so it kind of made sense. And then really in those niche markets, it actually does make sense to set up shop if you can own the majority of the market. Anyway, I saw no one was doing it for real estate. I started shooting photos too because brokers needed photos. No one was even doing HDR. Like it was crazy. 5 years ago on Zillow, everything was like iPhone or single bracket exposure for these like $5-6 million houses. Nuts. So I started doing that, and then kind of everything, right? 3D tour, drone, and I'm like, all right, let's turn this into a business. And then, I was going to college, so I couldn't shoot, but brokers still had listings. So I ended up training up someone on the island to do photography while I was gone, and then that was the first unlock for me. Like, oh, other people can do this. And then, I outsourced the editing instead of doing editing myself.
Right.
And so that's when I started to learn I can kind of abstract myself out of this. And so, yeah.
Yeah, and
But
I really like that your background. Frankly, I have a few ideas myself that I think are true, and I find that there's like a sailing book that is recognized in the sailing community as the ultimate guide to sailing. And it was actually written by a guy who was in a small lake. It's not like
mhm,
he would ever did a transatlantic crossing or anything else like that. But all of the principles and best practices he learned and demonstrated in just a small lake.
mhm,
Bringing that back to real estate photography, I find that people who work in small markets are forced to have very efficient, very streamlined processes that are actually more advanced than a lot of the companies that are in big cities. Because frankly, you can show up as long as you have a pulse and you want to do real estate photography in like Florida or
yeah,
Texas or San Francisco, New York, Washington, D.C., these big areas where there's thousands of realtors. Like I said, you don't even have to do that good of a job. You don't have to be that
yeah.
efficient. You don't have to be that good at getting clients because there's just,
There's so much.
yeah, there's infinite. So
Yeah,
learning how to do photography in a small market and excel at it, it takes expertise. So I recognize that you know what you're doing, and I have a bit of a bias for other photographers. I just like to look
yeah.
after my own, I guess. All right.
I
So
appreciate that. And I've been in houses moving diapers off the ground. I get it. And so like, I get trying to squeeze in the corner of a bathroom for that wide angle. So we're kind of trying to optimize the product around that.
okay, so what was the point in your career where you're like, man, I want to try doing this Auto HDR thing? It's a great name. You got a great domain.
Thank you.
Um, how did you decide that you wanted to do this? What's the opportunity that you saw in it? What was your motivations behind it? All of that.
Yeah. I think I saw it like again, I was just graduating college and there was the big path ahead of me was all right, we can go and scale this real estate media business. Nantucket's been a great market. We can see what other niche markets there are and just go all in. I'm a person who I'm very like obsessive about what I do, and I'm gonna, put just 11 out of 10 execution into that. And honestly, I love video. I love the creative aspect of real estate media, but I really was more interested in doing software because of, studying machine learning, programming. And it's just like the ROI from the effort that you put into it is just candidly better, financially in terms of impact, right? If you make really great software once, you can scale it infinitely and get it in front of a lot of people. And so for me, AI editing had not been solved for based on what I was studying. I felt like, and really I had the idea from a dream, and I felt like it could be done. And so, kind of just hunkered down for like the last year or so, and figured it out. And yeah, it's a custom train model, custom architecture, all our own training data, which I know we'll get into, but
Yeah.
it was not easy, but I wanted to try, and we were able to make it happen.
Sure, of course. And you say you were going to college for
Yeah.
AI. Is that your degree or your major? Like,
So yeah, so interestingly, I was actually studying finance, and part of that I was doing algorithmic trading. And so there's an engineering school next to me. That's where I learned a program. It's called Olin College of Engineering. I was taking programming courses, machine learning, and I was using that for algorithmic trading. But it's all the same principles once you learn how to train models. And so I know it's a lot of different backgrounds, but that's how I got into it.
no.
Definitely.
I mean, I have a lot of different backgrounds too, and I
Yeah.
find that, strangely enough, all my experiences ever since I was a kid has ended up working out for helping me what I do today.
That's great.
And
Yeah.
frankly, yeah, that's great for me. All right, so let's talk about
Yeah.
how Auto HDR actually works,
Yeah.
because frankly, there's a lot of software out there, and I talked a little bit about this in my review, where there's people out there who just take open source models
Yeah.
and they white label it, they stamp their logo on it, and then they push it to market. And I've been seeing
Yeah.
a lot of these. This is why we see so many, specifically photo to video
Yeah.
rendering. Um,
So many.
I mean, I can find straight up models that do exactly that. That are open source
Yeah.
um,
You can
on
spin that
Hugging
up in a
Face.
day.
And then, what a lot of people will do is take those open source models and just add a little bit of code on top of it, but it's
Yeah.
still not much. So
Yeah.
where does Auto HDR stand? What's your tech stack look like? We'll try to make this relatable as possible, but both of you
Yeah.
do a little bit of software so we can get into the weeds a little bit.
Yeah, I'm happy to. And no hate on like the wrapper, like AI wrapper business models. Some of them I feel like do add value, right? If
Mhm.
you can take GPT, make a wrapper around it, and put it towards some use case, like that's cool. And there's some apps making like millions of dollars doing that. But how sustainable is that competitive advantage? Probably not much.
Right.
What we do is, so I mean, the background of how this was made and how it was trained. Um, Basically, I started with my own photos, my own raw and edited photos, and so there's two components to it. It's the training data and then the model itself, right? And then training it. Yeah. And so the model itself is a custom architecture that I programmed. So it's not something you can find anywhere on the internet. It's not coming out of the box trained.
Mhm.
It's not putting into a model and prompting it and editing it. It's something that took, months to even get the architecture design and then tweak and perfect. And then the other thing is the training data, which is also not online or from anyone. It started from me to get the kind of MVP. And then I partnered with a coach who has a few hundred students to basically have them upload shoots, edit them, see how they looked. At first, they looked horrible, but the worst ones they would flag, and then we would just store like, okay, which ones are the weak points? And we'd hire the best. We hit up hundreds of editors. We found the absolute best ones we could find, had them edit those photos, and then we retrained the model on those raw and human edited photos. And then we iteratively do that, and that's how it works.
Okay, cool. So you have trained this up completely from scratch, is what you're saying?
Yeah,
No open source at all?
zero.
Okay, that's very
Unfortunately.
cool. That's very cool. All right, so how much? So I've used your software, and it seems like it's mostly been trained right now on one of the biggest. Let's see. Hold on. I'm going to check my outline here. One of the biggest mistakes that it's seeing right now that's pretty consistent, and I see this a lot in the marketing. I'm not sure if it's intentional or just coincidence, but a lot of the interiors that you guys advertise are pretty sun intensive, like lots of available natural light with white walls. And if we provide listings like that to the software, it ends up being a pretty good job. But if you add anything that has mixed lighting or walls that are colored of any color, whether it be green, yellow, blue, it seems like it tries to just desaturate whatever the wall is.
Just out of curiosity,
Yeah.
when you say that you guys market, who's you guys, or where are these photos?
Well, that's a good question. We're actually going to ask who you guys are affiliated with, who's
Sure.
partnered with.
I'm just curious which photos, because I've seen for sure, to like answer your question, in these rooms with all the windows and natural light and they're super bright, it crushes it because the darkest exposure, you still have that clear window view, the brightest exposure, you have all the data you need, right? And so even for a human editor, like that would be easy. And so I think it kind of correlates, like how hard would it be for a human editor? It's kind of going to be the same for the model, because all the model is how well did a human do given these set of raw inputs. And so if the raw inputs don't have available data, like the model wasn't there shooting it doesn't know the color of the paint, so it's going to work with and do the best it can with the input. So if it's very mixed lighting, I think that the editors that did our training data are very talented. They do well with mixed lighting, but it will do as well as they were able to do.
Okay. Yeah, and I think I see what you're saying there. It's just that when I tested it myself, I did have lots of color casting issues that weren't as good as an editor could do, and I think the general consensus seems to be in the comments, who have tried it out, whether it be in my YouTube videos or Facebook groups. Everyone seems to say like, it's not bad, but it's not as good as an editor. And we are
Yeah.
running into AI limitations, just in general with the industry, is since it is based off of human
Hmm.
inputs,
Hmm.
it seems to be limited to human abilities. One thing I do think that humans, it's tough to reproduce is judgment and interpretation. And I do find that given a few tries, beginning editors may have trouble selecting the correct colors, but just with a few weeks of
Yeah.
training or just experience, they learn. So my editors really know, even though they haven't been to the house, what
Yeah.
colors
They
to
know.
select. Yeah,
Yeah.
and I think it's possible for AI to get there, but right now, no, I don't see that. So its strengths do lie in interiors specifically, where there is one strong source of light that makes the color casting pretty easy to interpret.
Yeah.
But for me, with a lot of my homes, we don't have, you know, one source with big windows and white
Hmm.
walls.
Hmm.
Um, but that
I,
that's fine. That's just a point of improvement there.
absolutely. I would say that it can, over time, get that level of human judgment and nuance, right?
Right.
Any discrepancy you see is really just it's a gap in training data. It hasn't seen that situation that many times or enough times where it has the weights really in the model where it knows how it needs to be transformed. So that's a discrepancy in terms of training data. And
Yeah.
so it's probably biased towards bright, white, how's it? Oh, are you still there?
Yes. Yes. Sorry about
Oh,
that.
there we go. Yeah, so it's probably, biased towards that, just because it's seen that more. And so as we expand it and get like maybe those, it sounds like you shoot a lot of kind of those houses in that style, but when you think about those long tail cases that
Mhm.
maybe compose a small percent of the train set, over time as we get more and more of those, our hope is to be able to absolutely nail every single lighting condition. And then, yeah, um, with the core model, it will be, if it's trained on human training data, it will be only as good as the best human who's edited it. But
Yeah.
we are, there are ways that over time we can try and exceed that threshold of human quality with other post processing
But
models.
it does seem like, from a fundamental, the way AI works, being that it takes human input, it will never surpass human ability.
So if a model only takes human input, then yes.
Yeah.
But there are things that you can do as well that are generative and not necessarily, like, for example, we're trained specifically on human outputs. There's opportunities to do things that exceed that, because the training data is not human, and then integrate that into the workflow.
Okay, understood. All
Yeah.
right. Now, one thing that I find that you guys do pretty well is the window pulls are pretty quality, as long as the input brackets are good.
Hmm.
So that's one of the things where I feel like my examples did a pretty good job with. Some people were complaining that their window pulls weren't so good. Well, that's
Hmm.
because their brackets weren't so good, and that's not the
Hmm.
software's fault. And I
Folks do
run
that a
into that.
lot.
Yeah, I run into that all the time when I'm training people, especially how to edit. They'll follow a tutorial that they learned somewhere else of +1 -1 or +2 -2, and they
Yeah.
just don't recognize that on your darker bracket you have to have that nice
Yeah.
deep blue. And
Yeah.
if you don't give Photoshop what it needs, or Auto
Hmm.
HDR what it needs, it ain't
Yeah.
going to be there. You have to
Yeah.
provide the correct information. Um,
Yeah.
so how are you able to? One thing that I really recognize is that, so when I was trying out some of these other software, it's a lot more like an automated photomatics system, where it doesn't look good,
Hmm.
and it's just blended in a blender, and it's not very nice. You seem to have been able to do something that's unique, where the software actually recognizes windows, it recognizes walls, and while you're still working on the tweaking of how you're fixing the color casting, it recognizes the wall pretty good, and it
Hmm.
recognizes the window pretty good. Is that all just to do with edge detection and tone mapping? Like, that's really good stuff. Like, you want to talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah. I don't know how other softwares do it or
Mhm.
how, our competitors do it, but I would assume based on the time that it takes, and especially if you can do it within a web app, that it might not be very intensive on the machine learning side. I'm sure that they are using portions of it. Um, I often think that rules-based editing is a good way to make a machine do a bad job, and it should mostly be machine learning oriented, right? Like same thing with self-driving cars. If you give it hard rules that you program in, then it introduces opportunities for flaws. We are of the philosophy that we should give it the best output training data and let it learn by itself what to do. And so that's giving it a tremendous amount of input, every different variable imaginable, and then showing how that essentially should look. And how we run it, I mean, these models are billions of parameters, they're massive. And so we need to spin up a GPU for every single photo shoot that comes our way, and process it, which takes a little bit longer, but is also how we're able to get some of the better results than what you see in other softwares, is because it's just so computationally complex and there's so many weights and parameters in the model, because of the complexity of the architecture and the amount of training.
Okay. And one question I really wanted to ask as well is, as a photographer, my dream workflow would be to not have to send out photos to an editor, or ideally even upload it to the cloud. Would it be possible in the future one day to get Auto HDR so that we could run it locally on our own editing rigs?
Run it locally. Photoshop or Lightroom?
No. Just like you can download your own language learning models and run those on your own local machine, rather than having to use it through Auto HDR website, and then you guys have to spin up your own servers with your own CPUs and GPUs, which cost several cents per hour. We could just have it as a possible locally where we can run.
I would love that, for us from a cost perspective and an ease of use perspective for you guys and for photographers. I don't think you would need a really intense setup. You would need a very expensive computer and GPU rig to be able to run it, where like no consumer grade hardware is going to have the processing capacity to be able to run it. Okay. Unfortunately.
And this is where we might lose some people, because we're going to get a little bit tech related. But don't click away. We're going to come back to more relatable stuff. But let's talk about GPU, CPU requirements to run this type of software. So there's more consumer grade available CPUs and GPUs. So we could get talking about, of course, NVIDIA consumer grade GPUs, which would be something like, RTX 3000 series, 4000 series, 5000 series. And we're getting to the limits of technology where they're getting down to the atom of how efficient they're making these things. But here at my studio, we've got 12 core processors, AMD, with 120 gigabyte DDR5 SSD RAM, and then RTX 3090s, 3070s. I haven't really found a reason to justify spending $4,000 on a 4000 or 5000 series. Would that not be powerful enough compared to like an AWS GPU, which would be the NVIDIA like commercial grade GPUs?
It wouldn't, unfortunately. And those are great GPUs. They're super powerful.
Right.
They're super powerful. Like the most intense ones we see are video editors, right? Who, I don't know, maybe that's why you have yours as well, right? Who need the super fast rendering. But like, it's commercial grade NVIDIA, like A100 GPUs, which you're not going to find in a MacBook.
But, okay, so you need A100 GPUs to run this, and you spin it up for an hour. Okay. All right, so running them locally will never be a possibility then.
Unless we get A100s locally.
Right. All right, okay.
Well, or we have some breakthrough where we're able to make it way less memory intensive.
Right, and that's one of the things that came out recently with DeepSync, where essentially overseas companies that didn't have the same resources here in the tech giant of the United States
Yeah.
found out a different way to do it that was less resource intensive. Okay. Um, all right. So we'll talk more about that when we come to costs. Now back to more things that people can understand.
Yeah.
Let's discuss who you guys are affiliated with, because if you haven't noticed, real estate photographers tend to be very sales adverse, like allergic to sales. Anyone
Yeah.
who ever comes into the industry and offers them a good product, even if a bad or good product, they tend to be very suspicious of. And I think the reason that of
I
why
know.
that is because we have to deal with real estate agents all the time who, if we don't have a pay to download system, we're going to have to chase them down multiple times, most likely, just to get our payment.
Yeah.
And then we're lied to every day, regrettably, whether the intentions are bad or good. Real estate agents oftentimes cannot tell us the truth or the entire truth, such as, oh, the home's ready. Oh, it's really, yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Oh,
ready to go. It's unlocked.
yeah. We're no worries. We really need this by tomorrow. Okay, well, it's a life and death situation, Jonathan. We've got to have it. Okay,
Yeah.
well, we can do a same day delivery, but it's going to cost you $50. Oh, okay. Well, we can wait till tomorrow.
Yeah.
I guess life and death isn't worth $50 then.
Yeah.
Right. So there's
Yeah.
all sorts of things that people tell us, and then of course we've had plenty of people, just like every industry, that come in and try to cheat you in one way or the other.
Mhm.
So I receive it. I try to offer the best, most transparent stuff that I can offer, and people still treat me like I'm just out to just rob them and kidnap their children. Anyway, one of the things we need to be is as transparent as possible. And I've
Yeah.
noticed there's been lots of people promoting Auto HDR.
Yeah.
Did you pay for these affiliates like a paid sponsorship where you pay a fee to be sponsored on their YouTube channel? Or is this something where you've actually partnered with people and they've gotten equity in the business and are doing it that way?
Yeah, no paid sponsorships. They're partners. And
Oh,
so people who've helped us with, like I said, we partnered with a coaching community. So that was Brendan, Acre partner, and all of his students contributed towards flagging photos for training and helping us get the model to where it needs to be. And so, he has like candidly a monetary incentive, like on deals that he can help us land, he'll get a revenue share. And so I think he's transparent about that. And that's a opportunity that we're offering to other people too, right? Because I feel like if you can hear it from, I don't have a big voice in the community, but if you can hear it from coaches or other real estate photographers, that they're using it, right? And we don't partner with anyone who's not using it. Like Brendan's agency uses Auto HDR, not for 100% of deliveries. They're very luxury, but they use it. Same thing, we have a Spiro integration. Todd at Spiro wouldn't let us do the integration until he felt that his company could actually fully use and deliver it to their clients. And that for me is 100% what I want. I don't want anyone to talk about it if they're not using it themselves. So I feel like an affiliate program is our best way to grow and the best way for people in the community to show others who are doing photography what's available so they can automate their workflows, save money. And again, it's not for everyone, but I think that's the best voices to partner with.
okay, cool. So we have Todd Kivimaki and then Brendan Shu, and that's all your partners?
I'm partnered with Eli Jones as well. So
Mhm.
you saw his YouTube video, I'm sure.
Right.
Yeah. So
Okay,
they're
great. So three
they're
partners.
the main people helping us promote it. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So that is the transparency. Okay. So let's
Yeah.
hop into some questions from real estate photographers. Um, and this is just, I've posted in a few groups and then YouTube. One of the first things we saw was, can you do Plan B and blending?
Well, we can do it. It's just a question of the ability to group together the brackets. So if you're shooting a 3 bracket HDR or a 5 bracket, it's pretty straightforward. There's not too much complexity. But if you have a couple shots and then a 30-second long exposure or several of them, grouping that together is not something that is consistent across photographers or even shots in the same shoot. So that's where the complexity gets introduced. It's something like, so it might work, but it's something I would consider we don't even support right now because it's
Mhm.
not going to be consistent, right? If you want consistent results, shoot 3 brackets, shoot 5 brackets. I recommend 5 bracket, 2 EV. JPEG. But that's something that when we have the time and resources, we're going to spend a lot of time optimizing so people can shoot Flambient too, and we can consistently do it. Will the results be that much better than a 5 bracket 2EV HDR? It could be negligible. I feel like the editors that we're training or getting our training data with almost edit results that rival Flambient photography. And so there might be a question of if that's even worth doing in the future, if you can just shoot 5 brackets and have a result that candidly most agents won't even be able to tell the difference.
Okay. And if I could step in here and just do a small recommendation here to the audience. If you guys are shooting Flambient, something you may consider is leaving the flash home and trying to do ambient and seeing the results you get. I know that there's a lot of people who swear by Flambient. I think there's a very specific niche use for Flambient in the industry that has to do more so with architectural and design. For the results that you need out of Flambient, for real estate photography, good quality hand blended HDR is more than enough, and the abilities and advantages far outweigh any cons for Flambient. And one of the things you're going to run into constantly when you're doing Flambient is scaling issues. So that you're just going to have a harder time finding editors who are willing to do it and can do it right. Lots of times if you do an editor Flambient, they're not going to even use your flash frame anyway. They're just going to take the ambient stuff, and lots of photographers don't even know the difference. Real estate agents definitely don't. So if I could recommend something here is just do ambient stuff, because everyone shoots Flambient differently. There's going to be lots of variability there, and getting a good training model, I imagine, is going to be multitudes more difficult than doing it with ambient. So anyway, just something to consider there.
That's a great tip.
So how long does it take to train the model to a specific style? And this is just someone else's question, and I don't think they understand necessarily how you guys have done your stuff. I think they're assuming that they will be able to use Auto HDR and develop their own module themselves using Auto HDR. I don't think that's really possible. And that was the follow-up question. Can we do any training ourselves?
Right now, no. Right now, it's trained on and produces the classic, like overseas hand-blended HDR look. And we think that's great. That'll suffice for most of the market. Right now, there's people who like a little more contrast, a little more vibrancy, brightness. I recommend the base settings, but we've had people who like that and who their clients are used to it, and they're like, hey, look, we can't switch over until we're able to just like on all of our outputs apply the same style, almost like a filter, right?
Right.
And so we have this style settings profile where you can adjust contrast, brightness, vibrancy, white balance. Some people, they don't like that cooler look with the whiter looking walls that everyone likes. They like it a little warmer, so we have that.
But you do have custom user profiles, which
we do.
Okay, all right. So you can do some things. Okay.
But in terms of training your own model or fine tuning it to your style, no. But I wouldn't say that it's impossible. It's not like right now our core competency is that HDR style, but over time there's certainly an opportunity to be able to take that model and possibly fine tune it stylistically. I wouldn't expect that for months because that's not like something that is in high demand, but just want to say it's not impossible.
Okay. All right. So how is okay? And then next question here is, I think that's just a matter of time for you guys. Essentially, you're going to get your base edit, and then you're going to have people who request more things, and you can here's our original. If you guys are a little bit like bright and airy, dark and moody, options. I think you guys. So that's definitely possible. The last question from users is, how is Auto HDR better than our human editors?
It's a great question. I mean, there's 3 ways that you can look at it, right? One is from a quality perspective, one is from a time and automation, and then one is from a price perspective, right? And so I don't know where your human editor is on those 3 regards, but I can tell you that it's probably beating it on the automation. Like, we're integrated with Spiro. We have a one-click Dropbox integration. We have companies that are even uploading from an iPhone on site, turning around the final photos to clients before the photographer arrives at the next appointment. So from an automation perspective, I think, unless you have some army, simultaneously working on photos, it's probably better there. From a pricing perspective, we can talk about that in a second. We actually just changed our pricing model a little bit, which we can look at. And I think with the new pricing that for most people, unless you have an in-house team, it's going to be better. I don't think on our site right now, there's any price that is above what you would pay a human editor, unless you have insane scale and a crazy volume discount. And then 3 is the quality perspective. So that depends on where you're at with your editor, right? So we have a lot of people who've standardized their shooting. Right now, there's over 150 people who deliver 100% of their edits through Auto HDR. And here's the actual statistics on usability, right? Because we can tell this from the flag for training that we had. There's 0 to 2 photos per shoot on average that need a tweak, right? And so whether that's just a brightness or contrast thing or a weird tilt skew or like a sky bleed on the roof, that's the actual statistic of usability.
And can you repeat that one more time? What was the statistic on that?
It's for every shoot, which on average it's like 35 photos a shoot. There's between 0 and 2 photos that need a tweak or to be redone. And so that's either if you're a photographer using it, that could be you doing it. A lot of people though that are using it in high volume, a lot of people using it are doing very high volume. And so they have someone on their team that is a QC, usually a virtual assistant, that'll go through. They might tweak brightness, fix a little tilt shift that got done by accident, maybe toggle off clouds if the clouds look weird. But that's the stat. And a lot of people are not like very hands-on, detail-oriented, artistic photographers. It's like business owners try to scale. So it kind of comes down to the quality of your editor. Some people say, hey, it's not there yet. Some people say this is so much better than my editor, right? So I just look at it objectively. What are people actually delivering to real agents?
Right. Yeah, I agree with what you're saying there. Different people have different standards in regards to the quality of stuff they produce. And you have 2 camps in the industry. You have business owners and you have creatives. The best version of that is, in my opinion, a creative who matures and recognizes that creativity isn't everything and business has a lot to do with it. So there are people who are just nitpicking, pixel pinching, and doing things overkill. And that's why a lot of times when real estate agents listen, I don't care about your quality, I care about your turnaround time. Can you get these tomorrow? I care that you're available. Okay. So don't be spending all day editing your own photos to get a 3% better result in the image when I just need you to show up and get the photos for me. Because frankly, man, this is a divorce situation and the house isn't even picked up anyway. I could care less about the blue color cast on the wall. Yeah, so I get that. There are people who look at this and say, yeah, there are mistakes. Doesn't matter to me. And that's fine. All right. So essentially, how's an Auto HDR better than our human editors? It's faster. You can upload it. It really does work in 30 minutes or so. You have some tweaking that may need to be done, but it doesn't take all that long. Ideally, you want to have photos that are ready to go without you even having to look at them. But you guys are still new and you're tweaking some things. The best thing I can advise you guys all to do is it is free to try. Go ahead and go to Auto HDR, ingest your own photos, because I will say that when I tried it myself, there were a lot more images that needed tweaking than 1 or 2. But that may just have been, that's not a very large sample size. I only did like 2 or 3 little shoots. So you guys have a lot more statistics on mine. The best thing, guys, if you want to cut out potential bias or otherwise, just try it out yourself and see if it works with your photos. All right, so let's hop into my questions. And this is going to be transitioning really well. We've talked about this a little bit, so we won't spend too much time on it. How do you feel the edits are at this point? Do you feel like, okay, so here's the standard we want to meet as real estate photographers who aren't just getting into the industry. We've established ourselves and we need a quality HDR
Yeah.
or photo editing solution. Here's what we need. We need to be able to go out and shoot and upload the photos to a human editor or anything else, and the result we get back requires zero attention. That's the ideal.
Right.
I will say, the standard that we're also trying to achieve here with like auto driving and self-driving stuff with cars is,
Yeah.
listen, it doesn't have to be reckless, like zero accidents. It has to be better than a human driver. And frankly, human drivers ain't that good, right? They text and drive, they sleep, they drive inebriated, all that stuff that I talked about. So all we got to do is do better than a human editor. And I will say that I still have to remind my editors probably once every 2 weeks, hey, you are doing your sky swaps really well, but you've started to get a little bit lazy here. Make sure you're keeping your vertical straight. Then they'll get the vertical straight. So it constantly needs tweaking and management, even with a good outsourcer. What we're looking for with our editing solution is something that requires zero attention and zero time spent on us. Right now, you're talking about a little bit of tweaking that needs to be done, and we have to go through the images. But frankly, that is like exactly what we don't want. What are your thoughts on all that?
Yeah. Do you generally do like a QC on all of your photos before you send them out? Or what is that process like for you when you get it back from your team?
Yeah, for us, no matter where we get the images from, whether it's from Auto HDR or something, we do have to flip through it just to see if there was anything egregious. Plus, I find that for me and my team, if the editor is too far removed from the editing process, then their photography shooting starts to suffer because they won't recognize that, oh, I'm getting really lazy on my verticals, or the end result doesn't look good. So this just it just keeps the shooter sharp as well, and frankly, it helps prevent them from getting burnt out and feeling like they're just a cog in the machine.
Yeah, absolutely. And I have the same thing. We have a VA that is overseas and does all of our quality control on our shoots in the morning before they go out, and she'll go through and like oftentimes we're not removing things on site. Like we'll just leave it because it's so much easier to just remove it afterwards. And so when we were working 100% with a outsourced, like fully human editing team, we would still have to leave notes on 10 photos and say, hey, remove this, hey, remove that, fix the tilt, do all this and that. So that QC step is something that we already had. And I don't see that as being something that goes away, even if you have 100% perfect outputs, because you're not just going to be flying blind delivering it. Your photographer might have not like moved a trash can. There might be a car in the driveway which agents can't deliver. You need to blur a portrait. Whatever it is, there's always going to be a QC step. And so our goal is just build out the tools in our gallery so that the VA or you, whoever's doing quality control, is empowered with the tools in gallery to be able to make those changes themselves. So what our team now does is they use that auto remove button. And if there's a car in the driveway, they circle it and they remove it. If there's a tilt that the model got wrong, then they'll tilt it back. If it needs to be a little brighter, they'll do that. But that's what that now looks like instead of the back and forth with an editing team. And I don't think that would go anywhere.
Yeah, okay, good. The only thing I will say that is that with any editor worth their salt, the huge benefit of that is that the editors usually do get it right. It's very rare that, like I said, every 2 weeks or so, I'll have to be like, hey, you flipped here. But that's going to be more of a daily process.
Yeah, and ultimately, like, our number one priority is getting it to 100% deliverability rate. But realistically, sometimes it's zero, sometimes it's 1 or 2 a shoot. And it could be as simple as toggling off the clouds, you got some weird branches, toggle it off. And so the question for you is, are you super high-end, hands-on, you want to control every detail of the photo shoot, or are you going for full automation, cost saving? Some of the people using it are saving like over $100,000 a year. And so it's like, is that little extra step worth those trade-offs? So for some people, it's not, because either they do all their editing or they have it from a team that they never do QC. For people doing 3 shoots a day up to, there's some people doing 40 shoots a day, that automation is where it starts to become worth it.
Yeah, understood. For me, it would actually be more expensive just because I have 40 cents editors and
which is incredible.
Yeah,
by the way.
and yeah, it's actually pretty common. If you go to Pixel Mob, you can find plenty of them available. But a lot of people, I'm not sure where they're outsourcing. They haven't learned to outsource themselves. But
Mhm.
and also just the branches and stuff. For some reason, my thing was recording. Sorry about that, guys. But the branches and stuff is just something you shouldn't have to worry about. But it's also not
Yeah.
acceptable for any level of delivery, whether it be for people who are just trying to churn it out or
Mhm.
more creative professional people. Anyway, all right.
Yeah.
So you feel like the edits are pretty far along and pretty acceptable for mass adoption, but I'll let the audience decide whether you guys feel that would be good for you and your business. If you guys are paying $1 an edit, $1.50 an edit, it could be a price saving.
Yeah, I would
But
just say
yeah,
try
yeah.
it. Try it, see for yourself. It's
Mhm.
like we say this, we're not trying to force people to adopt it. It's not going to be for everyone, right? If you're trying to like automate your processes, there's a lot of people that are struggling right now to scale their photography team. The editing team is the last thing they want to worry about. So that's
Okay.
what we're here for. Yeah.
All right. So the next one, and this is the biggest topic that I'm sure everybody's waiting on, and that is discussing pricing, cost to produce an edit or a set of edits, and
Mhm.
so forth. So let's discuss pricing. And this
Yeah.
is where we're getting into where there were a lot of comments, a lot
Yeah.
of feedback saying this pricing model, doesn't work for me,
Yeah.
missed, too expensive, can't do it. And that feedback seemed to be pretty universal.
Yeah.
Can you do a breakdown of costs to produce an edit or a set of edits? And yeah, I'll just
Yeah.
let you take it from there.
Yeah. And do you want to like share your screen and go to our pricing page so we can look at the new pricing?
Sure, I can do that. Let's go
Cool.
ahead and present here. I
Yeah.
will clear a few things off.
Yeah, so the basic rundown is like for we have our basic tier, we have our intermediate, and we have our enterprise for big companies doing a bunch of volume. At that level, we can't go any lower in price per photo. The lowest it gets is 40 cents, 36 cents if you do a yearly contract, but like it's very few businesses that will do that. So realistically, it's like 40 cents you'll get down to. We can't go below that. In terms of the more middle tiers and entry level tiers, that like obviously we had a little bit of flexibility on, and based on all the feedback we got, it sounded like it was generally, and again, we're not like forcing anyone to use the software, but a lot of people are like, I really love this, but it's like actually a little bit cost prohibitive at this level. And so we were receptive to feedback, and those earlier tiers we brought down. We even, and this is going to cost us a bunch of money, but we want people to come back to the platform and try it and use it when they're in a pinch and get a rush delivery. Like we introduced this free tier where anyone will just get 10 photos a month. Like you don't need to use us, but if you missed a bathroom and you're in a pinch and your realtor is screaming at you over the phone, you can turn it around if it's one photo in probably 5 minutes using our free tier. So now, like you can see here, all these prices, I know you're at 40 cents. I never personally got below 65 cents with the best team
Mhm.
I could find. But I think that all of these tiers are now below the price of the standard human editing team. And then it can get dramatically lower.
Okay, and how is it going to get dramatically lower than 45 cents? You said,
Well, well, down dramatically lower than a human team is what I mean when you go down to 40 cents a
okay,
photo.
okay, understood.
Yeah.
All right, so we have a free option, which is $0 a month. But 10 photos, you can't even deliver a full shoot with.
Hmm.
Uh, so then we're talking about 500 photos a month, which would get you to, 53-cent option. So it looks like you guys have cut out the 80 cents and the 60 cents. I can't remember what it was, but I know the highest one was 80 cents. And then
Hmm.
the most value driven, I guess, with mass editing would be 45 cents, which is actually
Yeah.
raised from what it was, which was 40 cents.
That's not raised. If you slide that slider,
Oh, okay, to more
yeah.
photos. Okay, so
So
okay,
like from
I see what
a
you're saying.
business perspective for us, like real quick, it actually makes more sense to like only go after these big fish because it's less customer support. Their processes are standardized, and so you know that's kind of what we should be optimizing for. That's why initially we're like, okay, 80 cents a photo for the entry tier, that'll be fine. But we just got so many emails of people like, I love this, I want to use it. we feel like the pricing needs to be lower. And so we dropped it a bit for those earlier tiers. And again, we're not saying everyone needs to use it, but we wanted to make it more accessible. So there you go.
Cool.
Yeah.
Right. And is it okay if I stop sharing the screen here?
Yeah.
Okay, there we go. All right. So let's break down the cost. This may not be something you're willing to do, but
I'm willing to do it on a level. Yeah.
Okay. So what kind of costs go into producing a set of images or a single image with Auto HDR from the software side, from the business owner side?
Yeah. Well, there's two costs you can think about, which is the just fixed R&D that goes into it. And really for us is a continuous iterative process. So how much training data do you have, right? I can tell you that the training data is not cheap. With the number of photos that we've trained on and the price per photo that we're paying, we are not getting a giant volume discount, right? We're paying like the highest end editors that we can find to do these. So that's something to take into consideration, as well as just like when we are doing the training runs, those are on large machines. We're talking like 16 plus GPUs for weeks at a time, if not more, right? And that's for one training run. So, but that's fixed, right? And then, you have the storage for that data, whatever. Now there's the variable cost every time someone runs through a shoot. So even if it's free for you, it's not free for us. The reason we're doing that, we want people to try it. And right now you can literally upload on the site for free. It's you only pay for what you download, which costs us money. But again, we want people to try it. Now the cost that goes into that, the main one, like we talked about, is the GPU. We have to use a GPU every time that we edit a shoot. So that's the main determinant. And then there's also storage, right? Right now we're archiving photos after 30 days, but the storage, and we're recommending JPEG because the quality is indistinguishable, but a lot of people are uploading RAWs that are 50, sometimes even 80 megabytes. And so it's an insane amount of storage costs, as everyone knows from having to do it for their business. And then there's other servers, like there's a lot of processing that we do that's also not on a GPU, where it's just like super CPU intensive stuff. But those are the three main things that go into it when you think about, like, for one photo shoot, what does this actually take, just from a software perspective.
So are you guys, how much percentage of a single order does the actual cost of business involve? Is it 25%, 50%, 80% just to do the work?
It depends on several things. So what price tier are you at? And then how long does it take us to process, right? And so those are the two components. I'm not going to give an exact margin. And it also is very variable based on those factors, but it comes down to two things for us, which is how long does it take us to process, like how many photos are in the photo shoot, right? And then obviously what price tier are you at? That determines our margin.
Okay, understood. Now, does some photo shoots take longer than an hour or 2 hours, or because you used to say have it back in 30 minutes, right?
Yeah. No, so nothing that we've seen takes more than, sometimes people have uploaded like over 1,000 photos, which, we've seen take maybe up to 45 minutes. But if your shoot ever takes more than an hour, it means that something failed. And like, if you go into your shoot on Auto HDR, you can see there's a little progress bar you'll see failed. And generally we'll try to reach out to someone from our development team to let you know why. I would say one thing, if you are a Spiro user, caveat, there's a 30-minute delay before they send us photos. So it would be 30 minutes plus whatever it takes us to process it, because they're still checking the Dropbox folder to make sure that they're not missing any photos.
Okay. So how many GPUs does it take for you guys to complete an order? Is it several GPUs, one GPU?
Depends on the intensity of the job that we need and how much compute resources. So again, just depends on the size of the images. And then the model, like, without getting too much into the weeds, on average one, but at any given time, we probably have like 30 GPUs running on cloud servers.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
All right. So, and let me just bring up my outline here. Okay, so talking about discussing pricing, cost to produce an edit or a set of edits. I did my own homework on this and talked to some of my developers as well regarding AI, and using some of the information that you've provided here in the interview.
Yeah.
Running an NVIDIA A100 GPU server takes around $1.25 to $1.80 per GPU hour on average. You can get a little bit more expensive, a little bit less.
I can tell you we pay $10 for that
Okay.
an hour. Yeah.
All right.
Which I got to figure out which cloud provider you're looking at. We got to switch to them.
Yeah, I mean, there's lots of, that's Amazon and lots of other ones. But when you're looking at that, it seems like there's a lot of room for profit. And then we're looking at other AI developed software, including, Imagine AI and others. And they do offer editing, including window pulls and everything else for, 5 cents an image. So based off of my independent calculation, also looking at other realistic companies that are offering similar stuff who have similar computational requirements, they're able to make a profit in a business model that comes off, at 5 cents, 10 cents per image. And this is where, just coming where a lot of photographers are feeling this. It feels like the reason you guys are charging 40 cents, 50 cents an image is not because you have to. And I'm just doing my journalistic duty here. It seems like that's where the opportunity lies to cut costs of real estate, outsources a little bit, and then take as much profit as possible. That's what everybody's thinking. And then we're looking at the hard numbers here with GPU costs. You have said that, it's not going to take more than half an hour to an hour. The math seems to add up and not make too much sense. And then anyway, so I'll let you respond to that.
Sure. And you can break down your math. I'm glad to hear it. I can say if it's in the right ballpark, but basically two things. First of all, we're a business, right? If we have the best model, we want to make profit. And if we didn't want to make profit, we wouldn't have made this product that a bunch of people can use to automate editing. So of course we want to make profit. That's the goal of the business. On the other hand, though, we know that there's a trade-off between price and volume, right? There's thousands of people who've signed up for the platform who we know are not subscribed because it's too expensive. We know that we could potentially make more money even charging less because we would get just orders of magnitude more subscribers, right? That's a trade-off too. And so if Imagine or Auto Enhancer, these companies were meeting that mark from a quality perspective for these photographers, they would be using it. And I would say if you can get usable edits for your business at 5 or 10 cents a photo, you should do that. I would do that. That's a no-brainer. We can't do that because of the cost of running it. And that's also the reason that we get slightly better results, right?
Okay. So you are sticking with that your cost of processing the images is just 10x what other companies cost.
I mean, hopefully not 10x, but I would say that the cost to us for some of these companies is more than what they're charging per photo.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I guess we'll have to leave it there. The next question is, do you have a cheaper, so when you got started with this as a photographer, did you have a cheaper price in your mind before you built it, and then started filling yourself with others? So this is once again my question, because, and I don't go easy on anybody here, so
please don't.
Asking the hard questions here.
Yeah.
If you've affiliated yourself with Eli Jones, Brendan Shue, these guys aren't shy about charging a lot of money. Just for full transparency, Brendan Shue being an Acre partner, you get access to the networking group. Just for access, that'll cost you $12,000 or $13,000, not $1,200. It's up there. And then with Eli Jones, he had a course that was $500. Then he rebranded it, added a little bit of mentoring, and then put the price up to, once again, around $12,000. So these people are also people who like to go after lots of profit. Um, can you
Yeah,
respond to
two
that?
things. I can, yeah.
Yeah.
And I'll respond for them too because they're not here. But like, yeah, and again, they're business owners. I think they should be going after profit. I know people personally. I'm in a group chat of, for example, some of Eli's students who now do like 200K plus a year from scratch because they bought his course. I have no affiliation. Like, I'm not uh, gonna make a cut from saying that, but generally, he provides value.
Mhm.
Okay, so to answer your first question, like, and so does Brendan, by the way. To answer your first question, from me, from a photographer perspective, when I first thought of this, the price was different. It was really different. I thought I'm going to be able to charge the same price as a human editor because if I can get it to like the same or near the same quality, then why can't I charge 85 cents a photo? That's what I was paying at the time. It's faster, it's automated. It's the same quality and faster. To me, that was just like one plus one equals two. I should be able to charge the same price. I actually talked to Brendan and he said, no, like Facebook is not going to like that. Brendan told me I need to come down in price. And then we came down to our first iteration, which is what you had in your last video, in which people still critique the earlier tiers. And he was actually the motivating factor where he said, you need to make it more attainable at those entry level prices. So I can actually tell you that, like, I'm the one who's benchmarking the prices higher, and he's encouraged me to bring them down so that people can actually get cost savings too, and not just like the automation.
Okay. So it's not them. It's completely you. You're spearheading that, and that's that. But yeah, I would agree with Brendan there. Yeah, the pricing is a big issue, and while you guys have released now that we just showed a
Mhm.
new pricing model, um, the pricing is different, but still the same. It's still way expensive for what AI should be. So some of the other pricing structures we're seeing where it does cost 5 or 10 cents per image, that's attractive. That makes a lot more sense. It's an improvement. And frankly, it's where all the other AI companies, not just in photography, but in
Mhm.
the entire world, are coming. That's the angle they're taking, where they're saying,
Yeah.
hey, this is going to cost a lot less to process or do.
Mhm.
So we're going to offer it for a lot less. I
Yeah.
saw lots of good comments that were saying like the idea of AI is to dramatically reduce costs. If this doesn't save me any money, and right now with its current implementation, it does require a little bit more work than a standard outsourcer. So it takes a little bit
Yeah.
more work, and it doesn't save me any money. It really doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
Um,
If people can use Imagine AI at 5 cents a photo, 10 cents a photo, I'm telling you, do it. You should do
mhm,
that if you can use it. 100%. We can't do that, but we're also hopefully giving a more human level quality standard. And so we're not forcing anyone to use the product. So we appreciate input on pricing, but we're not saying you need to use this. It's just an
mhm,
option that's on the marketplace. Like
okay.
we're not saying you need to buy it. And so yeah, we flex down those entry level prices because those are where we have the most opportunity from 80 cents. The margin is much higher at 80 cents than at 57 cents, which is now the entry point, right? Um, but again, like we were receptive to feedback there. But also, like we've been through, it costs us way more to process than someone like Imagine. And so that's why our prices are still where they are. And for a lot of people, that is half the cost of a human editor, you know.
Okay. All
Also,
right.
I would say that a huge benefit of AI is not just let's do the same thing for less, right? There's companies that were waiting till the next day, skewed across different editing teams. Sometimes editors would get sick, they wouldn't be consistent, they wouldn't get their photos back, they'd lose clients. They're now literally uploading on site to Dropbox or with a SD card adapter to their phone to Auto HDR, and they're having their quality control team deliver within an hour, and they're just cleaning house in their local market and gaining share, and it's automated that whole process for them, which is more than just cost savings for a lot of big businesses.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. I'm not sure if Auto HDR has been out long enough for that to happen. I haven't seen uh, too much of that myself, but it could be possible.
I
Um,
mean, there are there's over 100 companies actively doing that.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, two of the last questions here. Can you prove to us what is different about your model than a readily available open source model or API? For example, there are some things that are used in Auto HDR. For example, the remove object feature. That's not something you probably developed yourselves. That's fine. In my software, we have calendar features. We take a base calendar and then we add all our features on top of it. Sky replacement, that sort of thing. That's something that's right available from open source stuff that you probably didn't develop from scratch, correct?
No, I mean, like sky replacement is completely in-house. Like I would say this, if you want to see if you can use like a API or a open source tool, there's tools like what you showed on your last video. You can go and you can try them. Like just pull up a website, pull up the model, try to prompt it like beautiful real estate photo edit and see what comes out. See if you can get like a nice HDR hand blended look.
Yeah,
I can tell you that's the
more
first
talking
approach.
about the components of like the remove object feature.
Oh yeah, sure. I'll tell you like so our core model, 100% custom architecture, training from scratch. There's tools that we piggyback off of open source models and then
Mhm.
fine tune from our train set and the style that we want and stuff like that.
Right.
But in terms of like plug and play wrap around other people's stuff, we I mean generally it's hard to do that for the niche, but there's some things where we could make good use of that. Yeah.
Right, yeah, and that makes perfect sense because you don't have to It's like if you're starting a real estate photography business, go buy a Canon. Don't try to make your own camera, right?
Yeah.
So, like, don't try to learn how to build a camera yourself and develop sensors. So, the fact that you
Yeah.
have an object remove tool that is, uh, borrowed from open source, previous stuff that was just shared, and that's the whole idea of AI as well. The tech community wants AI to remain readily available to at low cost, so that's why those things are out there. And
Yeah.
then you're
We
just
can be I
attaching
mean, let's
that.
go more clear on that. Like
Yeah.
today what we could do if we wanted is, for example, we all know like these image to video models, like you said, they're popping up every other day. It's because you can pass in a photo, turn it to a video. Doesn't require too much other than maybe a prompt.
Mhm.
There are things that, I mean, our core editing model is from scratch, but the things that we can piggyback off of still for the real estate niche, these models are not trained on high resolution images, right?
Mhm.
They don't understand oftentimes the context of a real estate photo. There's a lot of fine tuning, like actual custom training that still is required on top on top of pre-trained models to achieve some of that stuff. Like just so you know. Yeah.
Right. Understood. All right. And the last question I had would you be open to? I guess I had this question assuming that your prices were lower starting out, so this question isn't good.
Hmm.
But would you be open to consideration of not affiliating yourself with others and instead spearheading this yourself and lowering the price? Because frankly, anytime as a business owner you're thinking about profits and things, you have to start thinking about, okay, what are my tax costs? What are my costs to produce? How
Hmm.
much labor is this going to involve? I have to pay out my employee. Yeah, I've got to have insurance, and all of that goes into the cost of the product. So you were originally thinking about charging 85 cents, and that was before you were affiliated with anybody. Now
Yeah.
you have three partners, or is that
Anyone can
correct?
become a partner. I mean, just send me an email and like if you want, you can become a partner and we can like if you want to share the platform, get it in front of people, we're happy to share the love. So
Let's
yeah.
let's define terms here because I think the word partner gets thrown around a lot.
Okay, yeah.
I've had a lot of people say, "Oh, we're partnered or not," and they haven't even signed any papers or anything, which doesn't make them a partner. Are these just kind of like handshake deals, and they don't actually have any written equity into the company or partnerships? They're just kind of like, "Hey, we'll make videos and we'll promote you, and then we'll get a share of that." That's more so like an affiliate rather than a partner.
Yeah, I would say I'm not like on a podcast going to go into the terms that I've talked about with them, but I would say they're all like they're fair guys and are gonna use it and promote it, and know people are gonna hear about it anyway, right? And so they're just like, we might as well use our voice to share and get in front of
Hmm.
people. Um, but yeah, I mean, we have an affiliate program anyone can use if you're a photographer in your market. Like, we're happy to give you a cut of people that you bring on if you're spreading the word. So I would say, like, from my perspective, I never thought about raising the prices to be able to do that. I more just thought if it takes us reaching more people, that's a margin hit that we're going to have to take, which is unfortunate. But again, hopefully it's offset by having more scale and just getting in front of more people.
Okay.
So yeah, none of that ever influenced price. It was actually just, we want to get in front of people, we're going to take a margin hit.
Okay. Understood.
Yeah.
In regards to transparency with partnerships and stuff, I don't know this off the top of my head, but I'll have to review that.
Hmm.
There are certain, legal requirements of disclosure. And
Yeah.
speaking of legal, you didn't have any terms and conditions on your website before, and
Yeah.
it sounds like you're already using people's images to train your models. Do you have a terms and conditions out there, and are you going to offer any compensation for people who are allowing you to use the images to train your
Yeah.
models, which you will then profit off of?
Yeah. So there's a terms and conditions. That was a great point. We made it like a lot more obvious. So if you go to contact knowledge base, there's a terms conditions there.
Okay. And
Um,
did you have a terms and conditions before that I just didn't see?
it was just like super hidden off in this knowledge base. It's basically a notion, right?
Okay.
So
Okay.
anyway,
I
um,
gotta check that out.
yeah, check it out. Open to suggestions, but
Can you
the
summarize it
answer
for us?
is yeah,
The
and
terms
it'll
and
answer your
conditions.
other question too. We haven't. I mean, from people since our like big launch a couple weeks ago, since you made the video. Just to be clear, like we're not training off of any of that data. Like first of all, because it's too recent. Second of all, in that terms, it's basically like anything that you upload, it's under the understanding that we can use it to make the technology better. It's not like we're gonna go train on that because that'd be super expensive. We actually just care about training on the bad ones. Um, so yeah, that would be like what we have the little flag for in the gallery, which is now a human edit icon because we've added the ability to go and add your own human in the loop, which we don't need to get into now. But yeah, that's the conditions. Right now, we're only storing the photos, making them accessible for 30 days because it costs us so much money. But basically, the terms are assume that anything you upload, like we're going to use that to try and make the technology better over time.
Okay. All right,
Whether or
great.
not we do, who knows? And it also says like we're not going to use any of your stuff for marketing unless we reach out directly.
Okay, cool. All right. And in regards to cost, before I had asked you, you're saying that it costs a lot of money to produce. Before I broke down the pricing, I just want to be perfectly clear on this. I had
Hmm.
asked how long it takes for you to process images and how many GPUs it takes to process the image. You said on average one, um, but you're saying the $1.25 to rent an NVIDIA A100 GPU. It's a lot more than that, even
I mean, I
though
can tell you our hourly costs for those are like $10, if not more.
right, but
And there's
that's to run multiple customers' orders, correct?
no. So there's one for every shoot. So if there's a
Okay.
hundred shoots coming in at once, we got to run 100,
Mhm.
and they all get spun up. And it's so that we don't run out of capacity. There's one. If a new shoot comes in, we get a second. We can
Mhm.
spin them up, right?
Yeah.
Hundreds at once. So that's so we'll have a few running all the time where there's even overhead between shoots, but then that's for each individual customer. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, and I'm just seeing this independently, and then of course for my development, whether you're spinning up a CPU or a GPU, the the cost can be even less than $1.25. Of course.
Yeah.
All right.
We'd love to get it there, but if
Yeah.
it's like an RTX 6000, it's going to be super cheap. If it's a everyone's trying to get their hands on the A100, and so those are just like more expensive. Which hopefully
Yeah.
they'll come down. Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm comparing A100s here. All right. Well, that's that. I guess we've had a good review of all of this and a deep dive into all of the numbers and specifics of this. I really appreciate you coming on and talking about it. I'm sure a lot of people will decide to use this based off of this podcast, and some people will decide not to, but
Yeah.
it's completely up to their judgment.
Yeah, exactly.
But I wish you the best, and thank you for coming on here, man. I really appreciate it, and I
Yeah.
hope you have a good day. If you guys want to check out Auto HDR, just go ahead and go to AutoHDR.com and try it out, and I really appreciate it.
Would
Yeah,
Would
yeah.
you like to become an affiliate of ours?
Uh, not at this time. I'm not.
Okay.
I'm not open. I'm not. So, uh, yeah. Thank you for the following questions. If you want to ask me any questions, feel free. I'm as
Okay.
prepared as well. But essentially, I am a pretty hard close, as you could imagine. If you're
Yeah.
if you're someone coming to my front door trying to sell me windows, I've got bad news for you. It ain't gonna happen, right?
Yeah.
So also, I care about my reputation a whole bunch, but I also try to be a little bit more open and friendly with people because the feedback I see from people is, Jonathan, you're too hard on people. So I try to, be as open minded as possible as I can. So I have thought Cubicasa does a pretty good job. I have agreed to do a sponsored video that I'll release up in this next coming week, just discussing their new feature. But
Mhm.
my agreement with any affiliated person is always my opinion can never be um, edited in any way. I have to be 100%
Mhm.
anyway. So I also think that Cubicasa does a pretty good job of delivering a lot of value for the price. And as a
Mhm.
business owner, it makes sense for me because having to do
Mhm.
that myself or
Yeah.
otherwise would cost a lot of time and a lot of more equipment. With them, I can take my cell phone, get it done. It's $15 or less, and I can make $100 or $200 off of it. But they're
Yeah.
the only people I have ever partnered or agreed to a sponsorship with. Otherwise, I don't affiliate myself with. You guys have to
Yeah.
deliver a very good product. I will say
Yeah.
this.
Maybe we'll get there.
Yeah, over time, if you guys get to down to 5 or 10 cents an image, and I start using it, and it makes more sense than a human editor, then I will be your customer, and I will happily recommend you because I have no problem with people making money in the industry. Uh, but I do, and I am pro capitalism, not a socialist. Like I don't think people should get shot for making a profit. I think that's wrong. But I also think one of the beautiful things about capitalism is that it's up to informed consent on the consumer. And there's
Mhm.
two problems today with the United States is that a lot of consumers have become way too lazy to inform themselves and be a responsible, informed
Mhm.
consumer. That is the
Yeah.
customer's fault. That
Yep.
is not anyone else. If you go and you're just too lazy to compare pricing for, let's say, or functionality for scheduling software, for real estate photography, and you are too lazy to compare one side by side and see that one is clearly much better than the others and easier to use with less errors. Realestatemiadiahero.com, by the way, if you haven't tried it out, then go ahead and do that. And if you're not, you're going to be at a disservice where, where, yeah, anyway, I won't go into that. So you guys need
Yeah.
to do your homework. The other part is the responsibility of the business person, where they recognize that legally, as long as the consumer signs on the line which is dotted, then they are pretty much off the hook for whatever is on that piece of paper. So that's when you get into predatory sales practice, uh, false advertising, and all sorts of stuff. And I'm not saying Auto HDR is involved with any of that, but whether it be with homeowners, home insurance, medical insurance, anything, car, home loans, all of that, there's a lot of people who will design the entire process to make consumers less informed about the
Mhm.
decision they're making.
Yeah.
And that is what I would call greed and, snake oil salesman, all sorts of that. And anyway, I don't think
100%.
Yeah, and I don't think that that is good at all, and I don't think that's what capitalism is about. That's what I would call crony capitalism. There's two meanings for crony capitalism. One is where you actually, you
Yeah.
know, get the government in to work in your favor, but it's
Yeah.
also not just outside of the government. But
Yeah.
at this time, I really do feel like the price, just being, you're asking me, the
Yeah.
reason I wouldn't affiliate myself with it at this time is because I
Mhm.
do feel like the price is unjustified.
And
And
I appreciate that feedback. I can tell you, we are never going to have it down to 5, 10 cents a photo. If we can even get our costs from us that low, I'll be psyched. It's never going
yeah,
to get to that price point, though. I can tell you that right now. This pricing that we have here is probably like what is going to be the long-term pricing, unless there's some crazy reason where, I don't know, either GPUs come down a lot or something. But this is the price where it's made sense for, I mean, even at 80 cents a photo, a lot of people it made sense to do. I think at this price, it makes sense for a lot of people. Again, make your own decision. We're not selling cars where it's a one-time purchase and you're screwed. We don't even charge to upload, right? Like you're talking about, you can upload as many as you want. Like our big enterprise clients uploaded like 15, 20 shoots to make sure it's good without being charged a dime to
right,
to see if they could test it. And so that's what we encourage.
right.
But the pricing where it is at now, like we feel pretty comfortable that a lot of people can save like at least 30%, and then some businesses half on their editing bill. Let me ask you a thought experiment though,
Mhm.
because you do seem very oriented around the price, and I don't think it's as cheap for us to run as you think. But let me ask you, like, if say you had this and you could run it for free, $0, right? And people were willing to pay for it at 80 cents a photo or 50 cents a photo. Why wouldn't you charge that amount?
Yeah, and I don't think there's anything wrong with capitalism. I guess it's is not evil to make a profit. We invest money in our retirements with the idea that we're going to buy low and sell
Yeah,
high.
yeah,
But the idea of everything is that you don't have anybody who is a loser in the process, but also and in that
agreed.
situation, you would essentially, who's the loser? The consumer, the photographer is benefiting, and then the business owner is benefiting. It comes down to when there are losers like the editor, but also you have to come down to the brass tacks of whether it's actually more valuable than an alternative service. So
But
right
people just
now,
can just not use it, right?
right, but well, the reality is if you didn't buy that, I could get editors to do it, right? So it's not like if I don't get it, I can't edit photos. We can. There's plenty of other options.
Yeah.
Um,
And we're just saying like you don't need to use it.
yeah, so I just think that essentially why I would charge for it. It's a bit of a weird thought experiment where if it costs you nothing, because the facts are everything costs something. And that's why I think it's not immoral to charge people for pricing. Um, that's because everything costs something, that nothing's for free. So if you're asking your family member to shoot your wedding for free, I think that's immoral, actually, to work for free. That's slavery, all right? But the thought experiment, in my opinion, is faulty purely because it didn't cost you nothing. It cost you a whole lot. Development fees, um, training the models, that was huge. And then, of course, continuing maintenance. I know what software development costs. I've developed it myself and 100% funded it myself, like I guess you have. We're well beyond the six figures now. And just to get it launched with an MVP, in case you guys don't know what MVP is, that's a minimally viable product where we might not have all the features we wanted to have down the road, but it's enough to launch right now where it provides a value to the market and people
Mhm.
can start getting familiar with us, right? Um, so yeah, I think it's a weird thought experiment. My question, I guess a different question I would ask is how come we don't charge as much as we possibly can as long as the consumer agrees? That is a different thought experiment. And my answer to that would be, frankly, here in the United States, if the consumer consents in the form of signing on the dotted line, then the ways the laws that are set up, then we don't put responsibility on the government to make decisions for us humans. It's a free country.
Yeah.
You are free to succeed and you're free to fail. If you enter into agreement that is bad for you, that's your fault. It is your responsibility and you lose. And I agree with that. But there are some protections put in to make sure that business owners are not trying to, it's called undue coercion. Yeah, overdue coercion. What's the exact legal term? But you can't overly coerce consumers by all sorts of things. There used to be timeshares where, for example, there used to be hard pitch sales, and they would actually close the doors to the auditorium or to the conference room so they couldn't leave.
Yeah. Yeah. Like,
there's crazy stuff. In addition to if you try to cancel your subscription with your internet provider and they transfer you and put you on hold for half an hour, 2 hours. Yeah, that's bad stuff.
I was on a call with a social media marketing agency yesterday, and I was going to give them my money until the guy tried to close me on the call and asked for my card info on the call, and it just felt predatory, and I'm not giving them my business, right? And so that's partially why we do the trial periods, why, like, you can cancel your subscription. We don't think we're a predatory business model.
Yeah, and
I 100% agree with you.
Yeah, and just so you know,
I know that's not what you're saying.
Yeah, and I should do a video on this, how not to get screwed in real estate photography and in life, really. Yeah. You guys are, if I was going to make a video including variables in that, it would be transparent pricing, freedom to see and try it out for yourself and see if it's worth it, and no pressure. You guys are not high pressure and everything else. I can't say the same for other people, but I will say that for you. There are people who, in fact, I would say could not successfully run their business without the sales process that they currently have. And that's but anyway,
you can differentiate on product, or you can do it in your sales process. Some people are selling the same product but with different marketing, and we hope to just differentiate on product, something that's different than what anyone else has made.
I think you're doing it right.
Thank you. Yeah. So hopefully we don't need to do any of that crazy sales funnel stuff.
Yeah, but I appreciate you coming on, dude. And just to
thanks for having me.
Just to give you complete credit where credit is due, you guys are a new company. You're still figuring out. This is your first software that you've built, and you have a better product, I would say, like I said at the beginning, than Imagine or Auto Enhance. Both of those seem to be as good or slightly better than Photomatics, which is an ancient software at this point. You guys are doing something that I haven't seen before, where you seem to be appropriately identifying different key features of the image that need to be corrected. You have done the main feature, which is the most important feature, from scratch, right? So that is your intellectual property that you have developed. I think at this point, as technology continues to improve and price can be driven down, I don't think you're lying necessarily. I'm not sure how much it costs you to develop this, but if 40 cents is as low as you can go, I believe it. I'm just saying that at that price, it isn't a good business decision for me or a lot of people.
And that's totally fine.
Facing. And it's just kind of like, if what did Meta glasses came out, the Meta goggles, they were like $1,000 or $2,000. People weren't interested, but now they have the Ray-Ban glasses that are like $300, and they're flying off the shelves. People love them. So I think you have a good product that makes sense at a certain price. I think if you can figure out a way to get it down, you will do very well, and I'll be one of your customers. But until that happens,
this will be the pricing, and so we're not going after people who want it at 5 or 10 cents a photo.
Uh-huh.
We don't even think we can make money that way, right?
Uh-huh.
We're charging a rate where over time we can recoup the cost of R&D and then make a profit. And we think that actually, like, it makes the most sense for us to go after big businesses who can save a bunch by getting down to 40 cents a photo and reap the rewards of automation. So honestly, like, I know we could probably get thousands of users overnight at, if we dropped it to, you know, under 40 cents a photo, but even losing money aside from a cost perspective, it just wouldn't even be worth it for us to target those people, candidly. But I also do really think that if you're paying your editor 80 cents or as low as 65 cents outsourcing, right now all those kind of consumer level price tiers that we have are cheaper than a human. And again, not saying anyone needs to use it. If you're not a customer, it's no hard feelings, but that's how the pricing is going to be, is the current level.
And yeah, I won't take this on too much longer, but at the pricing model, looking at, let's say you guys did have some customers that were doing 10,000 photos a month. Have you done any estimations onto how many users you could get at that price tier? Like,
yeah, I mean, we have several users that do that much volume or way more every month. A lot of people that are depending on it for businesses doing 40, 50 shoots a day consistently. So I don't know how many of those exist in the market, but we hope to get in touch with all of them and be able to help them out.
All right. Because I was just, when I was doing the math in the original video, I think I'd said if you got 1,000 users at 4,000 a month, which I think would be possible, I said it would be $400,000 a month. I was wrong.
Right. 4 million.
I was wrong there. It would actually be $4 million a month. Mm-hmm. So I don't know, like, and I hate to keep coming back on it. I think there's a lot of room for leeway there in regards to, but I've got to believe you, even though the math from the software developers that the machine learning engineers that I consulted with, and then my own math using the variables that you provided in the interview, I don't see it, but we'll just have to take your word for it that it costs more than that. And
I mean, you can
that's the price.
Calculate it. There's more that goes into it than the variable GPU costs, but you can do your own math. I think you'll see it's about in line with what we talked about, and then just keep in mind other things like server, training, all that. But yeah.
All right. Well, thank you, Matt. I really appreciate it.
Me on.
And no problem at all. I hope you have a wonderful day. And don't forget AutoHDR.com. Thank you, guys.